it's quite a common problem that people say they're fine because they're concerned that if they admit that they have a problem, then they might be stigmatized or labeled, which is a real problem still. We do, unfortunately, in some pockets of the world and in some pockets of any given society, we do discriminate against people who have mental health problems, even if the discrimination is based on lies, and we often do have wrong ideas about what mental illness and personal problems mean for people.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And now it's time for the Tiberius Show. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, we're looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Well, today's guest is a job that is all about understanding how people think, how they feel, and helping them get through some of the toughest moments in their lives. He works as a counselor in Melbourne, Australia, where he runs his own practice helping people better understand their minds and overcome challenges. Do we know what a counselor does? Well, I think it's sort of like a therapist, but you know what? Let's just talk to this guy and find out. Let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing John Cuturilo.
Tiberius, it is an absolute pleasure to be here, and that is, I have to say, the grandest entrance that I've ever had. So thank you so much. I'm absolutely honored.
No problem. Okay, so John, you're a counselor, but for kids
That's it.
listening who might think that means sitting on a couch, taking out their feelings for hours, what do you actually do?
So a counselor, which can also be called a therapist, you're absolutely right. They're somewhat generic terms, although they can have different meanings depending on where you are in the world and the specific description of your job. A counselor is somebody who talks to people about their personal struggles, especially struggles of their mind, and helps them to understand why they're having those struggles and what they can actually do about them. And so, even though counseling does involve talking about emotions a lot, one of the most important parts of good counseling is that we actually help people to understand why they're having problems and then how they can solve them themselves so that in the future they can basically become better problem solvers and better deal with future problems. And that's in a nutshell what a counselor does.
All right, so what is a listener counselor? Is it like different from a regular counselor?
That's a good question. So I wouldn't say there's such thing as a listener counselor as such. Your Listener Counselling is the name of my practice, and I conceived of it some years ago now because at the time I was particularly interested in the work of a particular psychologist, Dr. Carl Rogers, who pioneered in therapy the idea of empathy. And empathy means being able to understand somebody else's experience, even if you haven't shared them. And so listening is an important part of empathy because in order to actually understand someone, you have to be paying attention to the details and what they are communicating to you. And so because listening was such an important part of it, that became the name of my practice. But uh, counseling, regardless of the specific type of counseling that you do, it has to involve good listening. So there's not, I wouldn't say a listening counselor is a specific type of counseling. I'd say that every counselor has to have that skill.
All right, so what kind of problems do people usually come to you with?
For most purposes for which people seek counseling, would I would work with them, but the specialties in which I have are trauma, which is what happens when a person has experienced a particularly horrendous event or a series of events that's left them feeling unsafe psychologically. And when the effects of that event continue to operate in their lives so that their emotions or their thoughts are disturbed and it's hard for them to function, then we call that a trauma response. I work with a lot of clients who have had those experiences. And I work with a lot of people who have relational problems as well. So I work with both individuals and I work with couples as well and married couples. And I help people to improve their communication skills and improve their conflict resolution skills. But outside of that, I work with a range of different problems, starting at more basic life skills like communication skills and organization and motivation and goal setting, through to more spiritual issues such as the search for meaning in one's life and grief, all the way through to mental illness like depression, anxiety, and similar problems.
Okay, now here's a question. You always say that you work with people. Now, do you work more with like adults, teens, or like a mix of everyone?
I mainly work with adults. I have worked with some younger individuals, usually people in their late teens. The reason for that is that working with children and adults, even though they're not worlds apart in terms of how you actually help people, it can be quite different because children and adults may understand the world differently and may communicate in different ways. And so it's important that the counselor is trained to deliver therapy in a way that's going to best use the way that that person communicates. So with a child, we would use different communication techniques to those in adults, and they can be quite specific.
That's fair. So, what's the biggest misconception people have about therapy or counseling?
I'd say the biggest misconception is that it just involves talking. Um, Unfortunately, some people have had experiences in therapy where they've spent a lot of money on therapists who just let them talk, and they've spent a lot of money on therapists sometimes who basically try to give them quick and simple solutions to problems that are a lot more deeply embedded in their lives. What good therapy actually involves is helping the client to understand themselves and then to understand how they can better relate to themselves and relate to other people so that they can be a solver of their own problems, not simply to talk about them. That there is unfortunately, a large variance in how different therapists deliver therapy, and that's why some people have had good experiences and some people have had not so good experiences. But if you find a competent therapist, then they will not just let you talk without actually giving you some kind of intervention. They will actually work with you and help you to understand what it is that you're experiencing.
All right. So, if someone says like I'm fine, like my girlfriend does, how often are they actually not fine?
Oh, that's a good question. I I'm not very much into the statistics of this, and I don't think statistics are even kept on how many people say that they're fine, but I would say that it's quite a common problem that people say they're fine because they're concerned that if they admit that they have a problem, then they might be stigmatized or labeled, which is a real problem still. We do, unfortunately, in some pockets of the world and in some pockets of any given society, we do discriminate against people who have mental health problems, even if the discrimination is based on lies, and we often do have wrong ideas about what mental illness and personal problems mean for people. And all too often, another problem that we face is that one of the main fears that we all have as humans is facing uncomfortable truth. And if we have a genuine problem, to say that you're not fine and to actually face it is something that can be so uncomfortable for people that we often find it easier in the moment just to avoid it, which is why we often say we're fine.
Yeah.
But what people find is that when they confront their problems and solve them in the long term, the result for them is a lot better than if they were to just ignore it in the short term. But you're right that a lot of people do say, I'm just fine. And we have to change the society to make it more acceptable to talk about problems. And that's going to take a long time and it may not always be successful. But the best we can do individually is just to be empathetic to the people around us and be willing to let them talk.
Yeah, that's fair. So, how do you help someone open up if they don't feel comfortable talking?
Well, there are a number of different techniques that we use, but what I find helps the most is by presenting as a human being first and foremost. So when I see somebody for the first time, or at any point, I have to present myself as a professional because that's part of how the process works. The person needs to feel as though they're talking to a safe professional. If they felt like they were talking to a friend, then the process wouldn't be therapeutic because their mind would be working in a different way. So even though I'm being a professional with my clients, the type of language that I use and the type of ways that I present myself, it makes it clear to that person that I'm just a human being who happens to be a therapist. I'm not somebody who's there to judge them. I'm not somebody who's there to try to oversimplify things or to misinterpret things that they've said to me. I'm there to listen to the details and make every effort to actually understand them. And so there are the way that I present myself in terms of my language is balanced between professional and personal. And I also have ways that I can relate to people, for example, with humor and with being able to pick up on things that they've said that I also have experience or an interest in, and ask them questions about what they personally love and who they are outside of their problems. And that helps people to see that I'm there to understand the whole them and that I'm not just there to judge their problems. And that tends to help people feel a lot more comfortable talking about the uncomfortable parts of their life.
All right. So what's one moment early in your career where you thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Well, I would say that I was in a crossroads at the time where I was still considering what I wanted, and I have a history of mental illness myself, so I've always been in and out of psychotherapy. I was in and out of psychotherapy during my childhood. It happened again into my adulthood. I was fascinated with how people solve problems, and looking at other therapists made me fascinated about how they solve problems. I was fascinated by this process of being able to talk to someone and help them realize what they couldn't realize themselves. But I was also seeing problems in how therapy was delivered based on my limited experience, and then I saw more of those experiences as I became a professional. And I thought, I want to help people get what they couldn't get elsewhere. I want to help people get the type of support that they should have received but didn't. I want to help people overcome problems, and I want to help people succeed and ultimately live the life that they want. And after having had my own struggles and seen what can go wrong, I thought, I want to help people make things right, and I want to make things right in my own life as well. And in those days, it was a difficult journey, but when I got there, I was massively happy. And to this day, I've have zero regrets about my choices, and I absolutely love what I do every day.
All right. Well, here seems like a good time to do a quick commercial break. Let's hear word from our sponsors.
So you want to make an ad for your company, right?
Yeah, Tiberius, you want to help me?
Okay, so what's the name of the company?
PPWND.
PP what?
Professional Pressure Washing and Detailing.
So you like clean driveways?
Yeah, like that. We pressure wash commercial buildings and semi-truck and trailers.
So how would someone get a hold of you?
They can visit my site at ppwnd.com or call me at 407-900-7793.
So I just tell them to call you at 407-900-7793 or visit ppwnd.com?
Yeah, Tiberius, you got it.
Cut! That's a wrap! Just use that!
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
And we're back here with John. He's a counselor, podcast host, and professional mind helper. All right, John. So let's talk about the brain for a second. Why do people sometimes overthink things that don't actually matter?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say people tend to overthink, so to speak, because in life you have to survive, right? All of us are designed to survive. We have a lot of things happening in the world and always have. There are lots of things that could potentially affect us. We have to deal with it, and we have to make decisions about what to do with it. Now, what that often means is we pay attention to things that seem like threats to us or seem like a danger to us when they're actually not necessarily. And our mind can very easily grab a hold of something that seems like a threat because of some feature of it, and all of a sudden we start to overthink or think repetitively about it because we want to try to survive by not letting it affect us. That's part of our survival strategy, effectively, that's built into us by nature. And that's why people sometimes overthink effectively. There could be a number of different variations on that theme, but effectively that's what our implicit goals are always. We're trying to survive in a complicated world, and sometimes when we're trying to decide where do I have to put my focus, we grab hold of something that looks like it deserves our attention, but in reality it might be something relatively small, or it may not be as bad as we thought it was. So that's often effectively the basis of stopping overthinking, is to be able to recognize whether something is actually as much of a danger to you or as a concern as what you might think it is.
All right, so what is anxiety? Like in simple terms for kids listening.
Anxiety basically means worrying about something that may happen in the future, regardless of whether it's actually happened or not. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be a mental illness. We all get anxiety from time to time, and it's a perfectly natural part of being human. And as I said, because we're trying to survive in a very complicated world, sometimes it can be easy to become fixated on something that may not happen, but also may happen. And we start to worry about the threat of it. And we're trying to think about all the things that we would have to do if it happened and how to stop it from happening and how to control it. And we get ourselves very worked up that way. But when it gets so bad that you can't think about anything else, which is a real experience, sometimes the brain gets so anxious that it just can't think of anything other than the subject of the anxiety, then it can be a mental illness that can actually stop people from working. It's happened, and I've seen that happen many times before. But effectively, it's about being fearful of something that may happen and then fearing what the consequences might be, but without actually doing anything about it. It's the repetitive cycle.
Yeah, so why do our brains sometimes like always jump to the worst possible conclusion ever?
Our brains tend to do that because we're very emotion-driven creatures, and emotions are what I would call signals. We can think of them as signals. They're not just there for the sake of being there. Our emotions make us feel certain ways to tell us where to direct our attention. So if you were sitting across from your girlfriend and you felt love, your emotions are there to tell you this is a very important person in your life, cherish them and take care of them. If you were standing in front of a dinosaur, which happened just the other day, actually, one jumped into my courtyard and I had to sort of talk him out of the way. But if you were standing in front of a dinosaur, you'd feel fear and your heart would be pounding and your breath would be racing because your body's telling you you need to get out of here or else that thing could eat you. So emotions are there to protect you from dangers, but also to make sure that you're doing the things that are going to help you. And so, um, because we are pre-built to survive, if we don't know about something or we don't really have much knowledge of something, the easiest things for our brains to do are to assume it's a danger so that we don't accidentally fall into a trap with it and get hurt by it. And that's often why we immediately, when we're faced with something, often our immediate instinct is to think the worst of it because our brains are saying, well, if you don't know what it is, best to assume it's dangerous, that way it doesn't eat you. And that is something that comes from our caveman days effectively. But the good news is there are ways to help us do that less. But effectively, it's our minds and our bodies trying to protect us. So it's important when we jump to the wrong conclusions not to beat ourselves up because that's just going to make us feel worse. It's important to be compassionate and remind ourselves that we're just trying to survive in the world.
All right, so is social media making people more anxious or more stressed?
I would say both because anxiety is about fear and fearing the future, whereas stress is about feeling challenged in your ability to cope with something. And I would say that social media presents a very distorted view of the world, meaning it's unrealistic and it's exaggerated. And often, because it presents the most extreme parts of society, both the parts of society that make us the most jealous, the most angry, the most fearful, the most sad, the most happy, because it's driving those very powerful emotions, often it can be involved in making us more anxious and more stressed. But I'd say that the relationship's more complicated than what people might say it is, and I would say that getting rid of social media is not going to make us less anxious or less stressed. We have to understand the mechanics of it. But in short, it is involved in it, most certainly.
All right, so if someone feels stuck or overwhelmed, what's a small first step that they can take?
If they're feeling stuck, the first thing that they need to do is to sit down, take a piece of paper, and write down what's making them feel overwhelmed and what's making them feel stuck. Because if you're holding everything in your mind's not going to be able to cope with it all. It's your mind's not perfect. It's not an endless store of information. You need to sometimes clear it. You need to write down everything that's making you stressed or anxious or overwhelmed or whatever emotion you might be feeling. And you need to divide it into points. This is making me feel stressed. This is making me feel stressed. This is making me feel stressed. Ask why each of those things is making you feel stressed and ask what you can do about them. And if you're feeling stressed out there, kids, I would say definitely speak to a teacher, one of your parents, another member of your family, someone, an adult you can trust, and get their help with it because it's important that you feel safe in being able to talk to somebody else if you're feeling stressed as well.
So, what role does confidence play in mental health?
Confidence is extremely important because the way that we feel influences how we think about ourselves and what we do, which then influences how we act in the world. And how we act in the world then influences how people treat us, which then influences how we think and feel about ourselves. It's a cycle. So if you feel confident, then you're more likely to push yourself harder to achieve more. You're more likely to take responsible risks. I'm not going to say risks, but responsible risks. It's important we know the difference. You're more likely to work harder in the things that you do. You're more likely to want to get better at what you do. You're more likely to go out and meet people, make friends, socialize, take care of yourself because you feel you're worth it. All of those things are going to have positive consequences. Those positive consequences are going to inspire you to do more in those areas. So it absolutely starts with feeling like you're worth doing something good. And the confidence is what drives that.
Alright, so what's one simple trick a teen can use to calm themselves down when they feel stressed?
One of the most simple and effective tools is breathing, and we call it mindful breathing. And the way that we mindfully breathe is in the moment, you breathe out over a set number of seconds, you hold your breath for a set number of seconds, and then you breathe out for a set number of seconds. For example, you might breathe in over 4 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, and then breathe out over 4 seconds. That's it. That's the way to do it. And doing it very calmly and regularly like that can really help you calm down because your mind is focusing on your breathing and not on the stress. And it can help you concentrate in the moment. And it's so easy to access because everybody breathes. We're just doing it slightly differently.
Yeah. So, do you ever learn things from your clients that surprise you?
I'll be honest, I've learned a lot from my clients over the years. I learn as much from them as they learn from me, and I found that I've learned a lot about myself and what my needs were many years ago when I started being a counselor. What I've found nowadays is not as much surprises me in the sense that I don't get that emotional shock as much when people describe to me things that have happened to them. It doesn't mean that I don't feel it. Like if someone's had a serious event happen, like something traumatic, or somebody's died, or they've been, someone's hurt them, it doesn't mean that I can't empathize. I do feel that shock of it, or I don't feel the shock of it. I feel some of that emotional tension that they must feel. But it doesn't surprise me in the sense that I can't believe this would happen in the world because, to be a bit blunt, I've seen a lot in the world, I've done a lot, and now nothing surprises me. But it doesn't mean that I'm insensitive to things or that I'm not compassionate. It just means that whatever comes my way, I'm emotionally ready to handle it.
Alright, so how do you stay positive when you're constantly hearing about other people's struggles?
The simple way that I stay positive for myself is to regularly remind myself of who I am and what I've done. I do hear a lot of horrible stories on a regular basis about what's happened to people, and I sincerely wish that those things didn't happen to them, obviously. But if I'm feeling stressed at the end of the day, I just remind myself, even if there are bad things happening in the world, I'm one of those lucky people that gets to help people actually overcome the bad things. Um, I've overcome a lot of bad things myself, and I'm still here, and I've survived, and I'm alive and healthy, and I'm incredibly grateful to be that, and I'm also grateful that I have the skill to be able to do it. And I just remind myself that there are positive things, and if there's negative things, then I don't have to worry about them because that's not going to do much for me. I have to do something in response to them, and that
Yeah.
motivates me to keep going and keep doing what I do.
All right. Well, your job seems like mentally hard. So why would a kid listening today want to grow up and do your job?
I'll have to admit that it's not for everyone. We all have different skills, and that's fine. You're not any better or worse than anyone else just because you can or can't do a certain job. But if you're someone out there who can feel when somebody else is feeling sad or angry, that means you're empathic. You can understand other people's emotions. If you feel like when you see something bad happen to someone, you really want to help make a difference, even in a small way. If you love learning about how people work and you love the world, being a counselor is a good career to consider because even though it's not going to make you rich and it's not going to be glamorous, it doesn't get you a lot of attention. If you're in a lucky enough position where you can, that's it. If you're in a lucky enough position where you are in like me, you're working in a small practice and you get to help people every day overcome their problems, you get to walk away thinking, I did a good job today. I helped somebody who may not have been helped if I wasn't there. I get to help them live a better life. Eventually, they're not going to need me, which is great. It means they're more independent. And ultimately, it also means I get to do something that's worthwhile. You know, I'm making my money honestly. I'm not making money off somebody else's misery, or I'm not making money off, selling a product that doesn't work or a service that doesn't work. I got paid for something that was worthwhile. And that's something that, again, I feel incredibly lucky to do because there is politics in this industry. And I'm lucky to be in a sector of it where I don't have to be a part of the politics. I can just focus on helping people. And again, very grateful for that.
Well, on that note, let's do another quick break to pay some bills.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius!
sent you.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we're back here with the insightful John Cuturilo. Alright, John, so for teens listening right now, what is one habit they can build early that might make their life better long term?
One habit is I'll quote a particular athlete and motivational speaker, David Goggins, do the stuff that sucks. And by that we mean know what's good for you, and even if it's not enjoyable, do it. Take out the rubbish on a regular basis, eat your vegetables, eat your fruits, have a nice healthy diet, study hard, have a good routine and stick to it even if you want to stay up playing video games or watching television. Make sure you get plenty of sleep. Never smoke, never use drugs. Avoid alcohol. I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't drink at all. I don't want to be dogmatic about it, but avoid alcohol. Avoid anything that fries your brain and makes you unable to make your own decisions. Don't think that just because something is enjoyable for you for 5 minutes that it's going to make your life better. Do the stuff that sucks that you know is good for you. And if you get used to it young, it's going to be much easier as an adult, and it's going to allow you to do things that are genuinely going to make you happy long term and not just give you a quick buzz.
Totally not me going to bed at 4 a.m. last night. And then waking up at 9. That was not a best thing. Now it's like, what? It's 5? Yeah. I've only been up for how many hours? Like 8? Yeah. 5 hours of sleep, 8 hours a day. Yeah, that sounds about right. Alright, well, what's more important? Being happy or being mentally strong?
At the risk of playing with your words, Tiberius, I would say being mentally strong, properly mentally strong, I would say real mental strength, in the long term will allow you to be happy. But trying to be happy first or trying to seek happiness just in terms of enjoyment probably isn't going to make you mentally strong.
Well, my dad tells me that happiness is like really a math equation. He says you take the amount of gratitude for the people, like the situations and the things in your life, and subtract the amount of envy you have for other people's contacts, situations, and things. How do you define happiness?
Your dad's absolutely right. That's a very wise perspective on it. It's a good question. It's hard to be honest, it's hard for me to define it. It's an experience, but I would say experiencing happiness for me means having what you need in life, doing something that is meaningful, that's something that's actually going to produce an outcome for you in the long term that makes you feel, I really enjoy this. This is something that's actually helping me grow as a person. And more importantly, constantly growing as a person, regardless of how old you are, doing something every day that's moving you just a little bit closer to being a better version of yourself. That to me in totality would be how I define happiness. And of course, being around plenty of good people who care about you and about whom you care. That's part of having your needs met, but it's
Yeah.
worth
So when
worth
you're not
pointing out.
listening to people, what do you like to do for fun?
Oh, that's a good question. I do spend a lot of time with my family and my friends. I love music, and my playlist is bizarre and eclectic. Everything from, gosh, The Police to Oingo Boingo to Shania Twain and Celine Dion, all sorts of things. I have like a whole mix of music that I play when I'm enjoying it. And I love watching old American and British police dramas and comedy dramas. So I'm a big fan of Dragnet. I've just finished recently watching Highway to Heaven with Michael Landon and Victor French, which I absolutely loved. I love the messaging in it. And I love watching old documentaries about the military and police and just olden day society. I'm fascinated by those things. And I love being out in nature and being with animals and talking to people about all sorts of bizarre things and sharing humor.
All right. Well, do you play any video games?
I don't. I'm a heretic in that regard.
Oh, do you have any like books to read?
Um, I don't read books as much as I used to. I tend to be more a reader of articles now. I tend to read articles on society, like the political climate and mental health and similar. But I would say I can recommend some books from my childhood, depending on the age of your readers. Suzanne Gervais' I Am Jack was an absolutely pivotal book that I read when I was a child. The Secret Country was another one. I can't remember the author. And The Wind in the Willows were three titles that I remember quite vividly in terms of what I used to enjoy as a child.
Well, if you could go back and talk to 15-year-old John, what would you tell him?
I'd want to teach him about what I know now about how my mind works, and I'd like to tell him, John, whatever you're experiencing is completely fine. It's not your fault. Your struggles are not your fault, but you do have the power to overcome them. And one day, if you work hard enough, this is going to be a lot easier and it's going to feel a lot more satisfying. And I don't think it would have changed the course of things because in those days I was, even back then I was stubborn in the sense that I didn't want to let anything kill me, but or kill my confidence. But it just would have made life a little bit more reassuring in knowing that this will have an outcome someday.
Yeah. So, what was the biggest mistake that you've ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
Oh, the biggest mistake I ever made. It's hard to measure biggest, but I would say before I was a counselor, I wanted to be a professional photographer. Now, I don't want to insult any artists out there. I love what you do, and it's important. So if you want to be an artist, you make your own choices and do your own research. But being a professional artist is a real struggle. There's not a lot of money in it anymore, and there's a lot of in the industry, there's a lot of exploitation. A lot of people will expect you to work for free to prove yourself, so to speak. So if you want to be a professional artist, talk to other professional artists and just know that it's a really difficult industry to break into, and you may find people taking advantage of you. Just make sure you have your wits about you, know what to look for, and walk away if it's going to be a danger to you. But when I realized that, that's when I decided to do what I do now.
All right, now it's time for the hard question. All right, all right, all right. Now, can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid's show. That one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
You sound like me when I'm talking to clients, Tiberius. I would say that this is not this is not an this is not a dirty story as such, but it can have some emotionally heavy topics in it. So kids, if you're watching, speak to mum or dad or somebody you trust after if this makes you feel uncomfortable. But when I was younger, some of the earlier jobs that I had were fraught with bullying. I'm not an old man, I'm not a young man, I'm somewhere in between. But even when I entered the workforce, picking on your staff was not, it hadn't disappeared. There were still bullies in the workplace, and I worked in a couple of environments where people realized that at the time I was the shy kid, and I was the kid who was a little bit different to everyone else. And there were some people who just didn't have a good view of themselves and decided, I'm going to take this out on little John here because he seems like an easy target. And it cut me. I mean, it led to me walking off the job at times. I'm not going to advise anyone to do what I did there, but it led to me saying basically, I cannot handle this. And at the beginning of a workday, once I actually just walked off the job and then contacted the owner of the business and said, I'm not going to stand here while your staff bully me. I just can't do it. So I had my struggles as well, and I want to encourage all the kids out there that if you're being bullied, don't stop talking about it until someone listens, because there is no excuse for someone to bully you. Bullying is not discipline. Telling you off for something wrong you did is not bullying, and bullying is not telling you off for something wrong you did. It's completely different. So if you're being victimized, do not keep your mouth shut. Talk to mum, talk to dad, talk to anyone out there who is willing to listen, get help, and make sure that you don't allow those bullies to overcome you, because no one has the right to.
All right, well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you and what you do?
Not so much about me, but what I would like to say is if anyone out there is experiencing their own problems, again, I know it's a dangerous world out there where people are going to judge you, but there are people out there who care about you, hopefully, and there are people out there who can listen. So sometimes you might have to keep talking to people before you find someone who's finally willing to actually listen to you and help you, but don't suffer in silence. There is hope on the other side of things.
All right, well, do you have like a website, or better yet, where can my listeners find your podcast?
They can find me at www.yourlistener, that's yourlistener.com.au. On there, they can learn more about me and also find links to my podcast. And if I'd want to, give a shout out to one of my dear colleagues who works in the same office as me. She's actually from Florida,
Oh,
but
wow.
she runs a counseling practice. She runs a counseling practice from here in Melbourne. She does video conferencing, telehealth counseling for clients over in Florida. It's called Rise Counseling. That's counseling with one L. Risecounseling.net is her website, and her name is Mindy Marcantelli, and she is an absolutely wonderful person, and I'm very privileged to work alongside her. So for any of you folks out there in Florida, reach out to Mindy.
All right, well, what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
The one question that I think is equivalent to any discussion with me is, John, what is the nature of reality? But that's a question far, far bigger than what we can answer in the time that we have available.
All right, well,
I'd say reality is complex.
It is really complex. Well, thank you, John, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Absolutely, thank you.
Stay sweet.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad, my computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners.
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you so much, John, for helping me with Math Corners. And this week, we're talking about multi-step word problems. My dad is always good at finding new problems for me to solve. And today, we're going to talk about meditation, which actually connects to what you do a little. You might be good at this one.
Absolutely.
All right. So a teen decides they want to improve their focus and reduce stress. And he's told meditation would help. So they start meditating every day. They meditate for 15 minutes per day for 30 days for a full month. So the question is, how much time will he spend meditating in 1 month? And how many total hours is that?
Ooh.
Nah, I got it.
I think
I got it. I think I got it.
I think I have an answer here.
You can say it real quick if you want.
7 hours 40 minutes, if I'm calculating correctly on the spot.
Really, really close. Really close. But I'll go ahead and answer it. Alright, well first, this is a real world problem. Because people always say, just meditate a little every day. But that actually adds up over time. So first, we start with the daily amount. The teen meditates 15 minutes per day. Then we multiply that by the number of days in a month. So we take 30 days to keep it simple. So 15 times 30 days, which is 450 minutes total. So far, that was pretty easy. But wait, we don't usually think in minutes, we think in hours. So we convert minutes to hours. We take 60 minutes in 1 hour. So we take 450 minutes divided by 60, which give us 7.5 or 7.5 hours. So 7 minutes and 30 minutes, not 40. You were really close.
I was close.
You're so close. I'm like, really, really close. But I'm like, yeah, just like 10 minutes off, yeah. So that means in just 1 month, that teen has spent 7.5 hours meditating. That's a lot. I mean, that's like, it was like watching 3 full movies. I mean, I could probably like beat Hollow Knight Silksong in that amount of time. But just sitting quietly and focusing your brain, I can't do that. My ADHD would go crazy. I would rather just be playing Hollow Knight Silksong. Anyways, John, do you think most people realize how much small daily habits can add up over time?
They don't normally, because and I think that's why a lot of people don't have small daily habits, because they think they're insignificant. But as I was talking about before, doing the things that suck on a daily basis, even if they seem small, like, taking out the rubbish at the same time every week and making sure that you spend just the right amount of time on the little tasks every day, over time, that saves you not only a heap more time, but it also gives you discipline. So absolutely critical. I think everyone needs to learn the importance of daily habits. It's so important.
All right, well, my teachers always say that I'll use math every single day. How do you use math in your work?
I don't use it as directly as we just described, but I'd say the reasoning part of my brain that would also be responsible for mathematics probably plays a big part. I would say that just in the day-to-day running of my business, I'm constantly having to conduct budgeting, making sure that the money that I earn every month can cover my expenses, making sure that if I want to make a purchase like renting a room or purchasing something for my business, that I can afford it within the budget, making sure that all my taxation obligations are in place. In terms of the indirect part of it, I'd say that there's a certain amount of mathematical reasoning that doesn't involve numbers that I do still use. For example, when I'm talking to people and I'm helping them to calculate what risks they're willing to take, you can't really calculate risk numerically in the space of counseling, but it's a mathematical type of reasoning whereby I'm helping people to think about things in that type of structured way to make decisions.
All right. Well, thank you so much, John, for your help with Math Corners.
My pleasure.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the Heart of a Lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. Well, this week, we're going to talk about leadership. For me, I think leadership is the act of loving what is good, having self-control, and being disciplined. The qualities of leadership are providing guidance and direction, organization, and being a positive influence on others. So, the other day, something interesting happened when I was working with my dad. My dad sometimes, takes me on jobs so I can, help out and even earn a little bit of money. And at first, that sounds awesome because I'm thinking, let's go make some money. But you know what? Then you have to actually do the work. So at one point, my dad asked me to go grab some tools and supplies. And I'll be honest, I kind of rolled my eyes and, didn't have the best attitude about it. And here's where the leadership part comes in. My dad didn't yell, he didn't get mad, he didn't make a big scene. Instead, he calmly showed me where everything was and then talked to me about something important. He explained that in a real job, attitude matters just as much as the work. He said if someone acted like that, at a normal job, they could really get fired. And that's not good. And for all the kids that are scared of the word job, it's not a slur, I promise. And then he did something I didn't expect. So even though I was there working, he only charged the client for half of my time. At first I was like, wait, what? But then I understood. He was showing me if you don't bring a good attitude, your work doesn't have the same value. And that's leadership. He didn't just tell me what to do. He showed me how to think, how to act, and how to do better. And you don't have to be a boss or a parent to show leadership. Sometimes leadership is staying calm, teaching instead of reacting, and helping someone grow instead of just getting mad. And don't forget that you can be lion strong. So, John, do you have an example of leadership that you saw this week?
I do actually. Just recently, I attended one of the offices where I work as a counselor, and the staff there were holding professional development. And for the kids who may not know, professional development just means when somebody who's already qualified to do a job does some learning or study to make sure that their skills are kept up to date and making sure that they can continuously get better at their job. So I did I did a little professional workshop with some colleagues, and I remember that the person leading the workshop, or actually there were two people leading the workshop, two very experienced counselors were leading them, and what struck me about these two people, which I've known ever since I've met them, but this is just a reminder of it, that they were incredibly noble in the way that they presented themselves. I mean, one of them was someone who'd been practicing for the last 20 years. That's a lot of experience in this industry.
Oh, wow.
And there was absolutely no ego about it. She didn't brag. She didn't make everyone feel like if you don't do things my way, then you're not as good as me. She said, "Yeah, I'm experienced, but I'm going to share with you the way that I do things, and hopefully you can learn something from that." And both of the leaders of the workshop, they didn't try to dominate, or they didn't try to make everyone feel like we were meant to submit to them and just do whatever they said. They said to us, "We're going to share knowledge with you." And that's part of being a great leader, as you said, is being disciplined and knowing how to restrain yourself so that you're not just saying whatever you want and you're not just reacting. You know when to hold back, so to speak. And again, I'm really lucky to know people like this, and that's an excellent example of leadership that I've seen.
Well, we should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. Roar it. Rah.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing John Cuturilo for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking to you today. I think we learned a lot about your work as a listening counselor, which I guess you really said wasn't really a thing, but it's what you do. You're a really good counselor. I think we learned a lot about counseling today. And do you mind giving
Well,
your
thank
social
you.
media website again?
Certainly, people could find me at www.yourlistener.com.au. And thank you, Tiberius. It's been an absolute pleasure to see you. And I have to say, you're an absolute incredible young man. And I look forward to seeing all the things that you do into the future. You're a fantastic host.
Well, thank you. And also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490 AM, K1998, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air my show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. And John, are you subscribed yet?
I'm definitely going to.
I see.
Save, eh?
Mr. Galactic says, I really can't wait to have one of those AR glasses. Well, thank you, Carlos. And yeah, I know it's you this time. I'm glad that you like the review of my Royal Kid glasses. And be sure to leave a comment on my videos, and I might even mention yours at the end of the show. And also, be sure to listen to us next on Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.